A well-known southeastern Kentuckian died Thursday. We sat down with family and friends to talk about the legacy that he left behind. An Olympian who helped the United States win the women's pursuit team silver medal at the 2016 Rio Games has died. And severe turbulence over the Atlantic Ocean tossed terrified passengers this past weekend. We have more from that flight.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News This Morning.
Good morning. It is 6:31 on Monday, March the 11th. I'm Will Puckett. Thank you for tuning in to Mountain News this morning. Well, it was a glorious Sunday, and we might see later on this week, but for a Monday, we're going to be back and do that somewhat late winter, early spring feel. Let's bring Brandon to give us a better definition of what that is. Brandon, good morning.
Good morning, my friend, and mid-50s today, so not too bad compared. We're going to go up throughout the week, and then we're going to reach a plateau, and then we're going to go back down just a little bit, but still not too bad overall in the 7-day forecast, which we'll have for you here in a few minutes. Let's take a look at the live pinpoint Doppler radar right now, and you can see not a whole lot of activity as we scan the skies. A couple of flood warnings up into Indiana, but that's it. Not much moisture going on around here today. McKee this morning, as we take a look at downtown, a little traffic overnight, but for the most part, all quiet there on the western front. The eastern front over in Whitesburg, looks like a big truck going downtown, making some deliveries maybe this morning, and we're going to continue to watch a fairly nice morning shape up for us as temperatures hover in the 30s and 40s, close to 50 down south there, Middlesboro and Jacksboro, Hazard as well, but you see a lot of low 40s there, and that's the trend across the state. Paducah 45 and 41 in the Tri-Cities, 39 up towards Cincinnati. A normal day with the temperature on the coffee meter, but of course it's a Monday after a time change, so it's a double whammy, so I'm going to put a little extra on there for you. And then as the forecast goes through the day, sun and clouds later on with a temperature of 55 for a daytime high. Full forecast on the way in just a few minutes. Will?
All righty, Brandon, thank you. Well, a well-known southeastern Kentuckian died Thursday. Ewell Baltrip was known for his nonprofit work and as a journalist. WYMT's Lauren McCourt sat down with family and friends to talk about the legacy that he leaves behind.
A familiar name in eastern Kentucky, Ewell Baltrip.
He was a champion for southeastern Kentucky.
During Baltrip's lifetime, he held many titles, but the one most important to him was father.
And I tell you what, he had great taste too. He never picked out a gown that was not just like spot on.
His two children, Amanda and Andy, say their dad was a jack of all trades.
Great sense of humor, humble, understanding, comforting.
Patient.
Yes.
I think he needed it with both of us.
And never stopped fighting for his passion.
He's always been a fighter.
Yeah.
Fight for everything he believes in.
Believing in eastern Kentucky, his home.
He fought to make sure that life was better in eastern and southern Kentucky.
Baltrip worked with many in his career, including WKYT's Barbara Bailey.
Ewell is by far the best journalist I've ever worked with.
Taking her under his wing while she was still in college.
One day he threw a book at me, almost hit me, but it got my attention. I said, "What in the world was that?" And he said, "It's a dictionary. Use it."
Some say he was known as an expert on Appalachia.
He was a go-to guy for state and national news media when they would come to Harlan to cover events.
Caring not only about the stories he covered,
and he just cared about the people of the region and wanted to make it better for everybody.
But also the people in the region. In Somerset, Lauren McCourt, WYMT Mountain News.
Now, Baltrip's funeral took place yesterday at 5 p.m. at the Southern Oaks Funeral Home in Somerset. Olympian Kelly Catlin who helped the United States win the women's pursuit team silver medal at the 2016 Rio Games has died. The three-time world champion was just 23. She died on Friday night at her home in California. Catlin won gold medals with the U.S. women's team pursuit in the 2016, 2017, and 2018 World Championships. She was a graduate of the University of Minnesota. Well, U.S. investigators are on their way to Ethiopia this morning to help after 157 people died in the plane crash Sunday morning. People from 35 countries are dead. 8 of them are Americans. The crash is drawing comparisons to the Lion Air tragedy from last year. The jet was a new Boeing 737 MAX 8. The FAA and NTSB have sent teams to assist Ethiopian investigators.
Technically, we should be looking at around 30 days to have a look at a preliminary report. That will obviously rely heavily on the 2 black boxes.
Now, Ethiopian Airlines has grounded all of its Boeing 737 MAX 8s until further notice. China temporarily grounded the Boeing 737 MAX 8s overnight, and Cayman Airways has grounded its 2 planes. Well, severe turbulence over the Atlantic Ocean tossed terrified passengers and crew around a Turkish Airlines plane cabin on Saturday, with 30 people suffering bumps, bruises, cuts, and a broken leg before the flight landed safely at New York's John F. Kennedy International Airport. Dozens of ambulances lined up in front of a terminal to quickly treat the injured coming off of the flight that left Istanbul for the 10-hour trip. One flight attendant broke a leg. Well, President Trump's top national security advisor says the threat of ISIS remains and the terrorist organization could undergo a resurgence. That is despite the president's declaration that U.S.-backed forces have retaken all of the territory once claimed by ISIS in Syria. National Security Advisor John Bolton explained the administration's view on ABC News This Week yesterday.
The ISIS threat will remain, but one reason that the president has committed to keeping an American presence in Iraq and a small part of an observer force in Syria is against the possibility that there would be a real resurgence of ISIS, and we would then have the ability to deal with that if that arose.
Now, Bolton told This Week when the president talks about the defeat of ISIS, he means the territorial caliphate, but not the end of ISIS overall. Now, the Trump administration is releasing its 2020 budget today. It is expected to be met with resistance, in part because of funding for President Trump's long-promised wall. The president's plan promises a balanced budget in 15 years and calls for nearly $3 trillion in spending cuts. A White House official says President Trump is requesting $8.6 billion for the border wall.
We have to be much tougher and have more constructive immigration policy, which we will be developing over a period of time. So, yes, he's going to stay with his wall, and he's going to stay with the border security theme. I think it's essential.
Now, the proposed cuts in the president's plan come as Congress faces yet another major fiscal concern. Lawmakers have to decide whether to lift spending caps put into place under the Budget Control Act of 2011. Well, several Democrats hoping to carry the party's flag into the next presidential election tested their ideas this weekend at the South by Southwest Festival in Austin, Texas. Here is DeMarco Morgan with more.
At least 10 Democrats and Republicans who want to be president came to the Texas state capitol this weekend to appear alongside musicians and entrepreneurs at the South by Southwest conference. But it was one other potential contender who still looms over the field. Former Vice President Joe Biden is expected to launch his presidential campaign next month.
We're in the final stages of that decision.
If he jumps in, Biden would be joining a field that already includes 14 Democrats. But a new poll of Iowa Democrats out this weekend puts the former Veep on top. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders is the only other contender to hit double digits. In Austin, CBS's Ed O'Keefe spoke with Democratic candidates about Biden potentially joining the race.
So if he gets in, does he draw support from the kind of Democrat?
You need a pundit for that. Well, I have a lot of respect for Vice President Biden. And first, we want to make sure he's getting in.
Former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz, who is still pondering a campaign as an independent, said Biden might help reset a Democratic Party that he says is drifting too far left.
I welcome Vice President Biden in the race. I think his voice will help the party, and I'd love to see the party move more to the center.
In the next few weeks, aides tell us that Biden will be putting the finishing touches on his campaign team and strategy, and he's set to make public appearances this coming week in Washington and his home base of Delaware. DeMarco Morgan, CBS News, New York.
Now, the widow of a West Virginia coal miner killed in the 2010 Upper Big Branch mine explosion settled a lawsuit against the federal government. She will get $550,000. Her husband was one of the 29 men killed. The lawsuit accused the U.S. Mine Safety and Health Administration of ignoring warning signs at the mine. Now, West Virginia Governor Jim Justice fired State Transportation Secretary and Highways Commissioner Tom Smith. Justice announced Smith's firing in a brief statement Sunday. The governor said he wants a new direction for the department, including a return to the core mission of maintaining the quality of our secondary roads and bridges. Meanwhile, the West Virginia legislature ended its regular session Sunday, which dealt heavily with education. The legislature is now moving into overtime while dealing with teacher pay raises and other education issues. Lawmakers started a special session that is expected to reconvene later this year. Governor Justice asked legislators to meet with teachers and parents before returning. Well, the time's now 6:40. Let's toss it over to Brandon to get a better breakdown of what to expect as you step out the door this morning.
Yeah, grab those jackets because I think you'll need them at some point this morning. Temperatures will continue to drop for a little while, probably to about 9 o'clock, and then start to climb again. UVA-wise this morning, though, pretty quiet as we take a look outside. And we go outside to the US 119 area on top of on top of Pittsburgh. Wow. I need more coffee. Whitesburg, Pine Mountain this morning. It's Monday and it's after a time change. Everything pretty quiet up there as well. 39 up toward Moorhead, 37 Danville. Everybody else in the 40s this morning. Some warmer temperatures down south where they're close to 50 down that way toward the Cumberland Valley and into East Tennessee. 55 this afternoon. A few clouds around this morning, and then we'll see those temperatures spike as the sunshine makes a reappearance. Again, still might be filtered with some clouds, but overall, not too bad of a day. Right around average for this time of the year. Will?
All righty, Brandon, thank you. Well, we will have stories trending on WYMT.com next. As always, thank you for joining us right here on Mountain News this morning. Just ahead, Dollywood fans, pay attention. This weekend is opening week for the park. We will tell you about the new features you'll find this year. And all the winter rain is causing the early arrival of one of California's most beautiful blossoms. It is called the super bloom.